Cars Channel News and Review Car.
Driven, Mazda MX-5 ND 2.0, heightened sensations. It's important not to get hung up on numbers. Not on power, or torque. No, what is more important is the feeling. The driving experience and feeling is more important than power. In my mind it just has to be fun to drive. Nobuhiro Yamamoto, program manager of the latest Mazda MX-5, told Top Gear. Do you agree with the thinking behind the MX-5? Unlike some philosophies that aren't debated because they're too abstract, this is one of those things that divide car enthusiasts. One is no less a petrolhead if he's in the turbocharged hot hatch camp, sniggering at this red ND as a wimpy machine for posers. On the other hand, there are those who swear by the joys of a sporty naturally aspirated engine, more so when it's allied to a lighter-weight RWD chassis. There's also much to be said about the open-top experience, which you must know it to love it. You've undoubtedly read fantastic things about this fantastic little car, but it really isn't for everyone, even many car enthusiasts. Here's why. The fourth-generation Mazda MX-5 was revealed to the world in September 2014, and a gradual rollout across the world saw us getting the Roadster in August last year. Lots of tugging at enthusiast heartstrings in between made it a much-anticipated launch, even if few will eventually own one. The big news here is that the world's best-selling Roadster is going back to its roots. As we age, our waistlines expand, and the little Mazda wasn't immune to the trend. Although the third-gen NC wasn't exactly obese at around 1,150 kilograms, it had gone past the 4-meter mark and gained 200 kilograms from the original. The trend had to be reversed, and Mazda set out to shave the grams from the start with the ND. The gram strategy employed to trim unnecessary mass resulted in curb weight that starts below 1,000 kilograms, which is 10% less than before and close to the NA's 940 kilograms. No mean feat considering the relatively generous equipment levels, its no stripped-out Lotus, and safety standards that today's cars require. Aluminium was used for the suspension, front double wishbones, rear multi-links, engine frame, bumper reinforcements and those shapely front wings. The structure uses more high-tensile steel than before, too. By the way, the MX-5 scored 4 stars in the Euro NCAP crash test, 1 star less than max not because of the lack of crash protection, but the unavailability of autonomous emergency braking. At 3,915 mm long, 1,730 mm wide and 1,235 mm high, the ND MX-5 is actually shorter than the NA from 25 years ago, besides being 105 mm shorter, 10 mm wider and 10 mm lower than the NC it replaces. Throw in 50 hours 50 minutes weight distribution with the driver behind the wheel, the lowest ever center of gravity in MX-5 history, and you have a great recipe for a sports car. Low weight doesn't need big power, and the ND is available with a 1.5-liter naturally aspirated engine with just 129 horsepower and 150 Nm, a motor smaller in capacity than the NA starter 1.6. But local importer Burmaz Motor has elected to only bring in the bigger and biggest available engine for the Roadster, a 2.0-liter Skyactiv G engine with 158 horsepower at 6,000 revolutions per minute and 200 Nm of torque at 4,600 revolutions per minute. Why not the 1.5? Because it's a no-no in this country for a sports car. Why would you want a 1.5-liter when you can have a 2.0-liter? Asked Burmaz boss Tuksari Benya. We can't argue with that. Made available with North America in mind, the naturally breathing 2.0 liters 4-cylinder sits longitudinally in front, with drive going to the rear wheels via a 6-speed Skyactiv drive torque converter automatic transmission, hooked up to manual mode on steering wheel shift paddles. Also in our Mazda's iStop Auto Start-Stop system working together with iLoop energy regeneration. 0 to 100 km per hour in 8.0 seconds. Something missing? That's the Skyactiv Mount 6-speed manual gearbox specially adapted for the ND, and its unavailability here is a real shame. While the local Mazda arm did promise a manual in a couple of months at the launch, there has been no update on this front. Could be a lack of demand, so if you're heading over to Burmese to beg for a stick shift, do share with us the result. Does the lack of a manual ruin the MX-5 experience? This car is too well conceived and talented for that to happen, but the performance of the automatic did leave this rider hankering for a DIY box. Response is far from immediate in normal mode, but feels a touch too hyper and jumpy in sport, which you can activate via a switch behind the gear knob. There are paddles, but it really shouldn't come to that. The 6AT is efficiency focused, and its modus operandi is to get up to the two highest ratios as soon as possible, and stay there unless heavily provoked. It cruises serenely at just 1,500 revolutions per minute at 90 km per hour and 2,000 revolutions per minute at the highway limit, contributing to decent fuel economy. The trip computer indicated 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers, 13.5 km/L, over 3 days of regular driving, and even after a day of hard running and long idling for photography, stood at 7.7 liters per 100 kilometers. Not everything is immediately better with a manual, and a slush box has its merits even in a sports car, but the Skyactiv Drive's character isn't fully in tune with the MX-5, which is as lively as you can imagine. Now that we've got the only drive-related issue out of the way, the Mazda MX-5 is as advertised. Like how superheroes first discover special powers, I experienced heightened senses in my first few hours with the car. Sounds that are normally muted or distant came at me from all directions, and this rider was as alert as a cat, even if his internal compass needed more calibration. With the top up, by the way. The MX-5 is clearly not a normal car by most standards. I'm coming from a Honda CR-Z with 2 doors, a 2+0.5+0.5 cabin and a low seating position, but the MX-5 interior is significantly cozier and lower. It's pretty much the lowest riding car on the road unless a Lotus pulls up alongside, and the typical view out of the ND is of its curved cowling and other vehicles' bumpers. Just enough space for the serious work of driving, nothing more. The lack of conveniently located storage spaces is something the MX-5 owner will have to get used to. There are no door pockets and just a small slot under the AC controls for a mobile phone. Keys and access cards will have to go into the tiny cubby under the armrest, smart tags into the cup holders, wallet between your thighs. I belatedly found a solution of zipping all knickknacks into a toiletry bag, which sat snug at the base of the center stack. Glove box? No such thing here, although there's a storage box behind the seats. It's wide enough to swallow a DSLR, but is 2-tier in height and access can be obstructed by drinks in the cup holder. Due to a habit of emptying all pockets before I set off, I found the lack of convenient storage harder to get used to compared to the cabin size itself. I don't remember the first-gen Toyota Mr. 2 and Mr. S being so uncompromising, so those coming from normal-sized cars might need some orientation.